climate change to
Hi.
help parents and grandparents be confident in how they can help solve this problem. So join us around the fire for a discussion. Put your questions and comments in the chat, where Kathy Marr will call on you to ask them to Dr. Fisher. Or raise your hand and Sandy Vanderhay will call on you. So thank you, Dr. Fisher. It's all yours.
Thank you. Hi, everybody.
Hi.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for that introduction. And thank you for being curious about this topic. Jane asked me to give a little bit of intro, and so I'm going to start there. I'm going to tell you a little bit about science just for 5 minutes, how Science Moms came to be, and some high level ideas about talking to kids about this issue. And then, I think we'll just have a conversation and we can take this wherever you would like. So I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen here with you. And I'll just give you a little background on Science Moms. All right. Oh, all right. Can you see that now, my screen? Yes.
Yes,
Okay, great. There we go. There was just a little Zoom wants to ask for permission moment. All right.
you
So,
got
all
it.
right, here we go. All right. So, we started Science Moms in 2020. It would be helpful for me to know how many of you are in Larimer County. Just even a show of hands. Okay. So, fall 2020, summer 2020, that's Cameron Peak Fire time. And so at that time, um, a group of an advertising and a professor at Harvard figured out that moms were very worried about climate change. They had done some polling. It's a bit of a story how they got together. One of their son took a class from the other guy and came home and said, Dad, you've got to work on climate change. Stop trying to sell these other things. Work on climate change. And so they figured out that moms are very worried about climate change, but weren't feeling comfortable talking about it. And so the just like many of you, right? They could see the writing on the wall, right? It's not I could see it, you could see it in Larimer County, right? The wildfire, the Cameron Peak fire. It was very hot. It was very dry that whole winter. And they realized that moms are more alarmed about climate change than almost any other group. So 83% of moms were saying, I'm worried about this issue, but I'm not clear how to talk about it. And so that was a confidence gap that was sort of stifling to mothers, is what we learned. So though this was a big worry, because most moms were like, I don't totally understand every bit about the issue, so I'm not sure that I can talk about the issue, right? And we we talk about the things that are important to us, right? And so that doesn't work very well when you have something that's really important, but you can't talk about it, and that leads to sort of helplessness, confusion, that sort of thing. So that's how we started Science Moms. Those two called me, and a few others, and they said something which, I'll give you the exact quote. Um, they said, "We need a suburban mom, Emily." And I said, what are you talking about? And it was, we were just coming out of the pandemic, and it was a time when, you weren't seeing lots of people. You couldn't do stuff in purpose, in person. And so we started with videos. We started this group of scientists who, work at all different aspects of climate change. And we started creating videos that would explain this issue and break this down in tangible ways, encouraging moms to take action. And that's how this organization started. And so it's a group of people who work on climate change. My specialty is air pollution, but we've got people who work on hurricanes and severe storms and Arctic climate, whatever. And we work to figure out how to communicate together. So I would love to talk to you about talking about climate change in general, but I'm also here today specifically to talk to kids about climate change. So I just want to open the door. If you want to talk about talking to lots of different people about climate change, we can do that too. But kids and climate change. So I'll give you my 2 minutes here, and then we can start having a conversation. The first thing you need to do is ask them what they know, because what they know is really dependent on what's happened at school, what media, what's happening at home, what age they are, and they may actually already know more than you. Now, that is a real that they might, and it's not unlikely actually, depending on their age. And so, the best place to start is to ask them what they know. And from there, we can talk about, some specifics and how you might get resources to help yourself know easier ways to understand and explain things. But always, always start there. And then some other high level things that you want to think about when you're talking to kids is to keep it simple. So it's important to use everyday language, and that doesn't make it wrong to have everyday language. Carbon dioxide is a pollutant. They act like a blanket. Like the carbon gases act like blankets. That's fine. That's how it works. You can use words like extreme weather. That's real. That's what climate change is. We're changing the extremities of weather and the average state. Thinking back on 2020, my family ran from the Cameron Peak fire. So my kids are already like overwhelmed with catastrophe after that experience. So kids don't really need extra doom and gloom. What they usually need at I would say, high school and below is honesty and reassurance. Like those are the really important pieces. I'll come back to that. It's good to make it local and personal, right? Like this year, it's been an extremely warm winter, right? This is not a normal winter. I would lead a discussion of climate change, and I'll do that on Thursday with some teenagers with what they feel right now. They felt it's been weirdly warm, and what do they think that could do? There's a red flag warning today, right? So we'll talk about that. So, rather than polar ice or something really distant, try to stay local to where people really are grounded in their personal experience. Talk about why and lead with emotion, right? So we tend to think, oh, we'll be more effective if we talk about some abstract scientific concept and then we have some authority. But actually, what we learn with Science Moms is you want to lead with people, emotions, and sort of shared things that we love. And then the last thing that I would say is, and we'll talk more about this as depending on what questions you have, is that we have the solution to climate change. So we don't have the solution to every problem. There's wicked problems in the world where we don't always have the solution to them yet, but we do have the solution to climate change. And so what can be reassuring to kids is that you're working on it, that you're doing everything you can, and that the solution is simple: to move away from burning fossil fuels. So those are some high level things to think about, and we can, think about what type of perturbation you have depending on the person you're talking to. But those are things that are tend to be helpful. And so what we have at Science Moms, and this is just an example for like talking to kids, but we have examples of scripts, is not quite the right word, but ways to talk about all different things with different audiences. And so that's part of what Science Moms is doing, is trying to help people become better communicators so that we all talk about it more. And things that are talked about more are usually things that receive political attention. So that's all I want to present. And then I just want to have a conversation with whatever you'd like to talk about of that, or anything else related to Science Moms, or climate communication in general.
Well, you've already helped me because I never think about it being that we have the solutions. I never thought about telling them that. That's great.
It's relieving, right? When I say, well, we
Yeah.
have it, we just need to decide to do it,
Yeah.
right? That's that we know what we need to do, and we don't know that about every problem, every scientific problem, right? But for this one, we know.
Very good. My grandchildren are all college age, almost all, or
Almost all
older.
college age. Yeah,
Yeah.
so they might have a pretty good idea of how it works, and they might not know how to get politically engaged, right? They might be right. It what they need to become more active might be different than understanding the science. They might not understand how to reach out to someone that represents them, who represents them, how to figure out what that is, right? Like there's the age, how you might approach it with the different ages, and life stages, activities might be quite different.
You've probably seen that as your own family aged. I think the first time that we were introduced to your daughters, they were about 5 and 7. So,
Yes, yeah, and they're very different now, right? They don't, of course, think my kids don't like science. They're definitely the artists and musicians, right? So they understand generally that they understand, I think, an important piece, that fossil fuels are the problem. That's the piece that they understand. And so they understand that we should make choices to reduce our use of fossil fuels. But, they would only give a high level discussion of what the physics of climate change are.
mhm.
Um, okay, what if your beliefs are different than your grandchildren's parents? So, okay, Jill, should we go to this one next? Is that okay?
Sure.
Okay. Sorry, did I jump ahead on mon I
Well,
just tell me,
It's all
Jane,
right.
if I went in the wrong order.
That's
No,
fine.
it
we're
doesn't make
okay.
any difference. Kath, we've got people on standby to make sure we don't skip over somebody.
Okay, okay.
You want to
Because I
take
realize
that?
I can't see everybody's faces in one view. So then, okay. I'll answer this one, or we'll talk about this, and then Jill, let me know if you want to think about something different. So I
Question.
think the question is, what if your beliefs are different than your grandchildren's parents about climate change, its causes, and mitigation efforts? So, one key point is that you just lean in with love. Like that is the key entry. And I think part of that leaning in is to that particular piece is why Science Moms has been able to remain nonpartisan, because every mom loves her kids. I mean, dads love their kids too, right? But as a mom, right, like I can relate to other moms. I assume she loves her kids with the same depth that I love my kids, right? So it's starting from a place of like that common, accepted, caring place. The causes of climate change are not debatable. That's that's not a thing. That's we know that climate change is caused by carbon gases, by greenhouse gases building up in the atmosphere, causing like a blanket. How you talk to that other parent about climate change, you might get some ideas from the Science Moms website. And I can think of some right away, and I can talk more about that too right now. So start wherever it is, like wherever you can find common ground. It may be that that person doesn't like paying for gas. It may be that that person is really like, the easier entry might be on air pollution. That, greenhouse gases, burning fossil fuels causes air pollution, causes asthma attacks, also causes climate change. So, think about where your common ground is. Some messaging that might work with that parent that some new research from Potential Energy, which is the nonprofit that helps, that sort of is the umbrella over Science Moms, is that, you can say things like, it's the atmosphere is out of balance and we have to restore the balance. That's a language that I think is true, and I think simple and accepted. The other way that you can approach the issue that tends to get a little bit less backlash is to prepare them. So you want to prepare them for a world with more wildfires. So you are helping them get air filtration for their home. So you're teaching about a real issue that we're already seeing. About half of the increase we've seen in wildfire burn area is due to climate change that has already occurred, right? Other half is about land management and choices and things like that. But we're already seeing the effects of climate change on wildfires, and there will be more to come. But you can enter by saying, I just want to help you protect your family from this. And that is like, we are accepting that climate change is a real thing, and we're going to prepare for it. And the next step is we will try to stop it. Right. So maybe think those are ways that you could have a, softer entrance into that discussion with someone where you may have a different political view from. Does that help a little bit?
I think Dennis Lamb had a question also.
Yeah. Hi, Emily. Yeah, we live in such a polarized environment, and I'm sure a lot of what we hear on the news and everything filters down to the kids level as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm really stuck. I have adult relatives that I don't know how to deal with, even, they're not kids. So, but I think some of the same issues are there. People that are in simply denial mode. And I don't know how to break through. Any suggestions?
Yeah, so I think that this is a place where the Science Moms materials actually might be helpful, because you're thinking about talking to adult children or, other family member adults, right? And that is different. That is, different than talking to more school age kids, right? And so some of the Science Moms materials that we have, trying to think if I can pull it up for you. We have some guides that, I'll put them in the chat here. Here's an example of one. That might help you think through for your setting what might resonate, what might be some common ground. And one thing that was really interesting, that's been really interesting, is the Science Mom stuff, that our videos tends to resonate with center right moms. And that may be the key to moving this forward, because I don't want to, I know this is the League of Women Voters, but moms have done a lot of things similar. Mothers Against Drunk Driving, right? They stop child labor. When it gets to be about their kids, the kids that are in the house right now, they can say they want something done and get it done quite quickly, actually, in the time scale of things. So you might, that I think that's one thing to think about, is that a center right mom is usually quite receptive to to this information, as long as it's not blaming her, or, like, she may not be super well versed, but you can be sure she loves her kids. So I don't know. That's the dentist that I might think a little bit about that way, and kind of look through this and think about where a soft entry point into a love of kids would help.
Thank you.
Kathleen Gilbert is asking, how do you convert these conversations into something like science fair projects?
Oh, I never really thought so much about that. I've thought about, how do you convert? Let's think about that. So I think the most important thing is that you lean into, there's a few things that I would think about with respect to a science fair project. So one, I would say, help the kid understand what are trusted sources of information. So that's really critical, right? For something like climate change, for something about tobacco use, right? There are definitely bad actors that provide bad information. So the first thing I'd think about with respect to a science fair and mentoring a young scientist was, how do you find reliable information? Where is that? Where does it live? It doesn't just live maybe in a Google search with like an AI coming up, right? It lives in a library, or it lives on a university website, or like what are sort of trusted pieces of information. So that's the first thing I would do. And then the second thing I would do is really lean into whatever that kid was curious about. So, and I say that because what doing science is really asking and answering questions and figuring out what a question is that you can actually answer. And I do that. I'm like at a science fair every day of my life, right? I'm like, what question can I ask? Do I have a hypothesis? Can I actually test that hypothesis? No, we don't have those observations yet. Okay, what question can I ask? And so helping them with that process of, I'm interested in that question. Can I actually answer that question? Or do I need to change the question into something that I have the tools and resources to actually answer? Is one second big picture thing that I think is really important with kids. And then two, teaching them that it's okay for your hypothesis to be wrong. Because what's most important is that they understand that we are not attached to our hypotheses, that it is, our way of exploring the world and seeking truth. But, when my hypothesis is wrong, it doesn't matter. Like it means I've learned that that's not right. And I'm not, real scientists aren't attached to the outcome in that way. And so maybe that's an indirect way of answering your question, but those are the things that I think help people like understand the joy in science and the process of science. And that I think is important for understanding scientists and what scientific information is.
This is Kathleen Gilbert. So I totally agree with what you're saying, but my concern is that most kids don't seem to be curious about science, and most kids approach science fair projects as a chore. And they look up online what's an easy science fair project. Since climate change affects us all so much, I would like to figure out a way in which that importance could spur these kids to be curious about science and come up with some interesting projects.
So I can give you an example of an interesting project. And I agree with you, I'm deeply unhappy with my daughter's science curriculum right now. Deeply unhappy with what she's doing. With sort of copying out of PowerPoints and watching videos. And I'm like, where's the instruction? Where's the hands-on? What are you doing? So anyway, I agree with you 100%. So here's an idea. Why do you think wildfires are getting worse with climate change? Like what, why? And so you could have them, sort of think through, something very simple. What if I toss a match on wet grass versus dry grass? What happens? So the atmosphere gets warmer, it dries out fuels, it gets thirstier. But so, like there's this very simple, oh, let's do something like that. So you could come up with some, depending on the age, like simple things that sort of mirrored some of the impacts that we're seeing, and thinking through some of that, I think could work. I think for other science projects, it's always good to teach kids how electricity works, right? Everything will have to be electrified. And so that's where maybe learning about anything about electricity might be really positive for anybody who wants to be an engineer someday. Those are some ideas there. But I agree with you. Some days with everything that's been happening with this administration and cuts to federal funding and things like that. Don't tell my department this, right? But I think maybe I should just quit and teach middle school science, because my husband tells me that the greatest generation went to middle and high school during the Depression, I think, and that's when all the PhDs were unemployed, and they all taught middle and high school, and so you just had people who just loved it so much in with younger kids, and it made amazing scientists. So anyway, sometimes I'm like, okay, well, I'll teach middle school. That sounds great. I was like, maybe I can do that when I don't have a middle school at home. So it's not middle school all the time, but but I think you're right. There should be better science curriculum.
Having seen a lot of volcanoes explode at science fairs, I think I read somewhere that science is constantly changing, and what we know about science, and that kind of goes along with what you were saying about if my hypothesis doesn't turn out to be proven, it's okay,
It's okay.
Have it,
Yeah. And so I think, Jane, I think when we sort of reward these perfect science, these perfect, unbrave, kind of framed, unreal science projects, I don't think we're doing the kids any service. We're not helping them learn to be what it is to be a scientist, which is to be wrong sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Rebecca Theobald wants to point out that it's neat to combine art and science, and maps are a good way of exploring the world and being creative. And she provided a link that's really kind of cool. I just opened it myself. It's fascinating.
You must know that Rebecca is a geographer.
And so one of the most fun projects I've done recently, thank you for that question, and I agree so much, Rebecca, is working with an artist named Kim, and I'll put it in the chat here. So Kim is a world famous artist, and she is known for these smog collectors. And so she has been doing this for a long time, where she carves a piece of plastic and she leaves these plates outside, and hopefully you can see that in that image, or I can share in my screen if you want. And she came and did this with us, with students at Lincoln, at Lesher. We did it with some folks from the Larimer County Department of Health. And we did a show of local plates. She brought in her art from, beautifully done, but we had a local community component to these smog collectors. And that merging of science and art, I think, was really, really fun. Really got me thinking in a different way about how you can use art to approach, make things that are invisible visible. And so that plate example it's making the air pollution visible, something that you can't always see, but it's a sort of a picture of it. And that was really, really great. And if her work, I think she does an amazing job at thinking about how to make invisible things visible, and other topics too. One thing I saw at a recent meeting, which I thought, I should try, is they were taking scientific graphs and then they were trying to make versions of them with pour paint, some kind of paint. And so then they were putting up people were taking the time then with the graph, right? And they are staring at it for so long to understand what it is, right? And then recreating it in sort of an art rendition. And I thought that was a really nice way to take the time with a piece of scientific information.
That's adding the STEAM to STEM, I think. And certainly the arts encompass a lot more than just visual arts, too. Fran's on the line, and she gets kind of shy about talking, but she would also talk about how theater and dance are great ways to better understand the science that's going on. And if you can act this out and then somehow translate it into another form, it somehow makes it easier to understand.
Yeah, and I would put that out that I'm always happy, since many of you are local here, I'm always happy to explore these kinds of collaborations. And with after we did the work with Kim, because we had it at the Gregory Alakar Museum of Art, the Gamma on campus, then we also did something with the middle school music ensemble. They had the director there had a song composed, and then they played it. So it was ways that I didn't ever think about broadening the communication in different ways. And it was so wonderful for me and my students. It was just so great to, think completely differently about that communication. And I thought it was great. All right, where am I going next? I'm losing track.
Well, there's a question about book recommendations for young children about climate change. Colleen reads to kindergartners every week, and she's looking for books with a storyline like The Great Kapok Tree.
Okay. We definitely have some recommendations on Science Moms about books. And I can picture the cover of one, but I cannot picture the book itself. So I will find that for you. And then I have another one that I think is not the best storytelling. I don't want to put it down that way, but I actually think it's pretty good. So the EPA actually has a book. So I will find the Science Moms recommendations for books. We have a list somewhere here on the website about the books, and I can picture the cover, but I'm just having trouble coming up with the name as I talk to you. But there's also this set of books from the EPA that when I in elementary school went to go read to my daughter's classroom, this is what I did. It's called Cocoa. Why is Cocoa Orange? And there's a new one called Why is Cocoa Red? I'll also find that and share that resource. But the first one is generally about being an asthmatic and understanding the air quality index. And the second one is about wildfire smoke in particular, which for our area is wildfire smoke and extreme heat really is how we are living climate change here. So I actually really like those books. I print copies of them for all outreach events that I do, and I just give them away. And parents take them. And so you can print them. There's a PDF. You just go ahead and print them, and you can print them and give them away. So I like that one because it sort of touches on health. It's very elementary school. It's good for that K through, you don't read to kids that are fifth graders really out loud, right? But that K1-2, I think it would work really, really well.
Isn't there a Dr. Seuss book too that's out there? The Who's or something like
The
that?
Lorax.
The Lorax.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Lorax is of course a great book.
Would you consider pulling up the website and kind of giving us a tour?
Oh, of course. I'm happy to do that. So just let me open it here. I'm not sure I can do it all at the same time. So just hang on. Let me get here. Where did you guys go? All right, website's open. There we go. I'm going to share that one. Can you see it?
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, so this is another faculty member, Melissa Burt at CSU. These are the current Science Moms. We rotate in and out. Some of us come and go. I've been one of the long ones. And what we have for resources is a set of, basic education, myths and facts, groups that you could join. Maybe we should put the League of Women Voters actually here. That would be kind of fun. I don't think that they're listed, but here there's other groups that are working on this issue. And then we just have these
Emily,
simple...
can you full screen that?
Oh,
It's
are you
full
not-
screen.
Are you not full screen?
If
It
you
is on
are,
mine.
it must be me then.
Yeah.
Yep, sorry. Go
Okay.
ahead.
I was like, I don't know how to make it bigger. Hang on. I gotta figure it
Oh,
out.
That was me.
Maybe my window can be full screen though, better. Let me just see.
I'm
It's-
good.
You're
It's
okay.
fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then so under the videos, so for example, this is one that I'm not going to turn the sound on, but this is one that I made with a mom in Colorado about her asking me questions about fires and climate change. So that there's 3 minutes, and we have a bunch of these about droughts. Like Melissa did one on droughts. Joellen, who lives in Arizona, and her kids are, because she lives in Arizona, extreme heat is really the issue for Joellen. So Joellen does one on that issue of extreme heat. And then we have, some very, very easy climate change explanations that are easy to share with kids, and you could use in any sort of presentation. And then we have some on what we can do. And I remember making one of these here's one on extreme flooding. So we've sort of put together a little library of how to talk about the issue. We have information on ways to help. This has been very effective once someone accepts climate change, and most people do, right? Remember, 83% of moms are worried about climate change. I don't think that's changed, right? So maybe you have some percent that's not worried about, but most moms it's on the list of things they worry about for their kids. Things that you can do, we have some information here about all of these things, what you should swap in your home, how to share correct information, and then how to speak up to elected officials. And so I think I did the speak up one, and there's a video down here, and we have some examples on how to do easy things. One thing that we are trying with this information, so there's not so much at the individual level, we're trying to emphasize that climate change is an us problem, right? That it will require collective action, because it does. An individual mom cannot change the power grid, right? Like an individual mom is not necessarily, we need this at a scale, right? That is globally, that is nationwide, right? It needs to be done at scale. So the individual information is not as much. There's more on like speaking up and that sort of thing, on taking action. And then there's a bunch of resources here, and this is some about what to say to kids is actually here too. But we have, podcasts. So here's an example. I talked to Ricky Lake, which was hilarious and fun. But this is a podcast I did with Ricky Lake. We did some other ones. A bunch of different, this is an idea, something from, but Joellen did Kelly Corrigan. So this is one about electric vehicles I did with The Inevitable. And so there's some fun guys that work on electric vehicles. That's their whole podcast. It was really fun. So this would be really nice for college students, this Kelly Corrigan podcast. Basically, what she did was pair us with a young leader. And so we talked about the issue from our two perspectives. So if you're thinking about how to talk to someone in college, I would think these might be nice to listen to. So that's all the stuff that's on the Science Moms. There's a bunch of resources. I'm rambling, but there's a lot of different resources about how to talk to different audiences, and like examples of ways that you might feel more comfortable talking about something if you just heard it. Oh, of course, that way. That makes sense, right? And so this was really fun doing.
That's a
these
great
things.
website.
Thank you.
Really is. Yes.
I didn't make it. But I'll tell the people who make it that I think they do a great job. But yeah, this was great. Like Sophia and I talked in the same episode, and her nonprofit that she started is translating climate information into every language. And so it was just really fun to think about being that age and all the neat stuff that they're doing.
Wow.
So Kathleen Gilbert has an excellent question. If 83% of moms are concerned about climate change, how did we get to the present political mess in which we are decimating the EPA?
Well, we did make a lot of progress prior to this. And I'm not sure that moms love everything that's happening right now.
Yeah.
I don't. I don't. Like, climate change is just one of the things I'm unhappy about right now. But I'm not sure. Yeah, not sure exactly how to answer that. But
Not too many moms making decisions, apparently.
not too many moms making decisions is, I think, potentially what's happening.
Seems like 83% of angry moms would be a pretty powerful force to rally.
Yes, yes. But I mean, we need to validate those moms and,
Yeah.
give them the tools to communicate. And, but yeah, and that's, I think would be great to have. It's been Science Moms was kind of quiet this last year. We're actually thinking about how a year ago we had something on the Super Bowl about climate change. We were really proud of
It was
ourselves.
fabulous. Yeah.
But we don't have this year, right? The donations that helped that happen last year are going to other issues, right? Other issues, maybe supporting our democracy in general. And so we actually are thinking really hard about how we break through this crazy media cycle that we're in now. It's a very hard. I think these conversations need to happen in person, locally. All this stuff needs to happen because the media is very hard to break into right now, just with the chaos that's happening in the US.
Don't you think it's been that way though? I mean, for the climate, it's been a big disinformation.
Oh, for sure. Of course, there's been of course, there's disinformation. There's very active disinformation on this issue, right? But we were, I think, making progress in a state of calm and stability. It's easier to break through with sort of rational and kind and it's when people are acting in good faith. And I think right now we don't have everyone acting in good faith. So that's tricky.
Yeah.
And young people seem to have so much to worry about. Now it's almost feels bad to talk to them about another bad thing.
It does, which is part of why I think it's really important that we are working on it, right? That the older generations are working on it alongside them, right? Because if they're the only ones working on it, it might be a little too late, right? So we need to both encourage them to work on it and to be very active ourselves. I don't want to tell them it's too late because that's not very motivating, but the time scale of action is right, is maybe before some of them can vote, where we need to continue moving forward.
Can you see the question? Erica wants to know if you have some specific suggestions for the League of Women Voters of Colorado, if you had any asks for our league.
Okay. I don't know exactly what I can ask, but I'll just give some general perspectives that might give you some ideas. I do think that with sort of a leadership, let's say, vacuum on this issue at the national level, the action will be in the state, right? And I think there's a lot to be done in states that will pave the way. And we can try things out and test different policy options at the state level. And so I think that working at the state level could still be extremely effective. One thing I would say that is really important is that I think it's really important that we tie together the local impacts And I mean that not just in fires, which I've been sort of harping on, but also in air pollution. So, one thing that is true, and I think is really important that people do not think about, is when you make a choice for clean energy, a choice that's good for climate change to reduce your carbon pollution, you are bringing the air quality benefits to your family, to your neighborhood, right? Like when you choose an electric car or something like that, you improve the air for your children, for your family. It doesn't really matter like if you tell them that there's also a climate benefit. So sort of leaning into air quality at every level, I think will benefit our climate. And so that's one thing I think to think about. And there's continue to be opportunities to move us forward on the air quality front. So, and I think the other thing is what's just very important is that people have a plan. So elected officials have a plan. And so asking about the plan and persisting on that there must be a plan and what is it and are you working, right? Like these are hard problems that will take time to work through and take effort. So I think just continuing to keep this as a topic that really is important. Those are some ideas. Erica, is that helpful? I could keep going, but then I feel like I would get rambly. So I don't want to get too rambly.
He says thank you.
So Dennis is wondering if a group like yours got a significant infusion of money, how would it best be used?
I think I would go back to buying paid advertising. We made a lot of progress with paid advertising, and what that looks like is, so in 2020, one of the I don't know if I showed it in the tour here, but in 2020, Science Mom started with a video of me showing pictures of my little kids and talking about climate change. And it is very emotionally raw, the way they edited it. And it moved the needle on people's opinions, right? And Melissa Burt did the same thing. And we were so scared in doing it. We're like, oh my gosh, we're putting ourselves on TV. I hate this. I hate this. I hate this. But I do think that continuing the paid advertising, just like other interest groups is an important part that Science Moms can do.
Oil and gas have them
Correct.
During the news hour 3 or 4 times. So
right.
I agree.
I think that I would, with any additional money at this point, and of course, I would trust, so Potential Energy, which is the nonprofit that receives money and then helps pay for things for Science Moms, right? They are constantly testing things and doing research on what would move this needle forward, continuing to. So I think we should revisit with them. But when there's misinformation too, you have to combat it by a factor of 8, really, to undo it. And so there is just a volume issue. That I think, this advertisement plus just increasing the volume of correct information is part of what needs to happen.
Times 8, that would be a lot of
It is. It is, right? But that's the level. And so if Science Moms, as our mission, right, is to increase literacy on this issue. So whether, that's the best use of the funds, maybe some, other organizations would have other ideas of things to do. But for Science Moms, I think what we've been very effective at has been these, 15-second to 40-second emotional things to say, like, wake up, this is an issue and you have to please pay attention and it is real.
We actually don't see anything like that, do we?
No, but that's what we did between 2020.
Yeah.
That's what we did for 2020 to 2024.
And I'm thinking
really
right
until
now,
this.
yeah.
No, No, you don't see
nothing.
it. And it's, it's hard. I think we even thought about early on, in the change of administration, we were like, well, are we going to be targeted? Like, it was just crazy, right? Our grants are getting terminated. All the academics are like, what's happening?
Yeah.
So it's just chaotic. And I think now we're thinking, okay, maybe we need to lean back into this. So
I
it is,
I
oh, sorry, go
wonder
ahead.
I wonder if well, I was going to ask, are you familiar with I can't remember what it's called, the special endorsement for diplomas that's for climate literacy, that it's been
Jefferson
effective
County.
in the state for what is it, Sandy?
Jefferson County has done that too.
Yeah, so it's statewide. There was a law passed a
Mhm.
couple of years ago. So the first group of students will have already graduated with this new seal now. I think maybe last year they did. And I was wondering if you were aware of maybe anything going on with that, been involved with any students, heard of any impacts of that, what you thought about the program.
I can't speak to it. I am aware of it because I was asked to provide feedback for Poudre School District, but I actually sent my husband to that because I forget why. I was so busy. And he has a sustainability background as well, and more from the private sector. So I was like, I think you should go to this, just so I was not involved really. But I was aware it was happening, and I was aware that PSD was working on it. And there were a number of faculty from CSU that provided feedback. I am working on, so even at CSU right now, we don't have an atmospheric science program. It's at CU Boulder. And so we're working on a climate studies major, and SOGIS is leading that, but I'm working on a physical climate science pathway for students. And so working on designing classes. And so that at CSU will be available in 2 years for students to begin at the undergraduate level. And so, yeah, I think that is one thing that I think educators can do is continue to, continue to make sure that everyone is well versed in this, and students bring things home, right? Like I started off with saying, ask them what they know, right? Because it is, often good practice to send things home with students, from students to parents, also.
Yeah, and a part of this diploma endorsement, I think part of the program was that it required some kind of project that would have benefit to the community the student lived in. So I'm kind of curious to see what's been going on with that. Well, I was wondering, Rebecca has a comment. I wondered if Rebecca maybe wanted to come off mic, open her mic and talk about what she put in chat.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Theobald in Colorado Springs. I'm a geographer and at the Geography and Environmental Studies Department. Just my experience in 2025, I was able to go to the climate conference for the League of Women Voters, and just had a whole, great opportunity to engage with the world there. And there were many people from states. This was after the election, and they knew what was coming, basically, in terms of national decisions. And so I think there's a lot of effort around local organizations, and that to me is where we can really be the most useful.
I agree.
We already go to city council, county commission. We just need to take climate and add that to the list of issues that we're following. And so I really like the approach that says, let us make you more confident in asking these questions. So I think that's really helpful. So
Thank you. And yeah,
work.
I agree, Rebecca. Like right now, where I think people can be very effective is local up to the state level, right? I think there can be a lot of trust built. And again, many of the benefits will benefit the local air quality. And so there can be very clear benefits to communities that make themselves more resilient to climate change or less dependent on fossil fuels. And so yes, I think you're right. And one other just thing that I just want to comment on is this, like, moms doing more. I agree. But, I mean, right? Like I can't yell at my teenagers now because there's a dog on the other side. Right? Like it's just chaotic when you have lots of kids, right? Everyone has them knows it's just too many things. But at the same time, like, busy people get more done. And right. So I think arming mothers with the ability to do things, right, with any time that they have, I think, continues to be an effective strategy, as long as women have rights. Like, this should work. So, but I think yeah, this Mothers Against Drink Driving, right, and the end of child labor, and these are things driven by moms, and there's no reason why we can't do that. Potential energy. Yes, potential energy. So if I just share my screen here about potential energy, I think I just pulled it up. Oop, nope, wrong one. Sorry. Sorry. Do you want me to? Might be easy if I hang on. I've got too many screens open while I started sharing something else. So let's share here. Okay. You might see your own faces for a second. This is potential energy. And these are the folks that have done the fundraising for Science Mom. So I volunteer my time, right? But then to pay for advertising and things like that, potential energy does that fundraising. And this guy right here, John Marshall, who started this organization, how Science Mom started is his son took a class with Dan Schrag, who's a faculty member at Harvard, and Dan was one of my postdoc advisors. So this is the guy who said, Emily, who said, talked to this other professor at Harvard and said, we need to find someone who will go on this adventure with us. And then I said, sure, I'll try this out. If you think that if I could be helpful, and let me tell you some other women who I think would be willing to give this a shot. But yeah, his son took a climate class at Harvard and he decided to found Potential Energy. And Potential Energy is doing all sorts of other things in addition to supporting Science Mom, but they're doing a lot of research on how to communicate on urgent problems in a way that's accessible. So it's a neat team.
Have you worked with the Colorado Renewable Energy Society?
No, I have not.
Cress?
Happy to, but have not.
Yeah, that would be. I think that most of the people that are in it are from Larimer County, but I may be wrong. It's and they seem to have a lot of members that are technical people that know about renewable energy.
That would be great. We're doing this is a side note, but maybe something I should mention. We don't have the date set perfectly yet, but I will share it out back to Jane whenever we set it. I can't remember if it's May 5th. It could be May 5th. We're working on putting together a panel of people from it will be largely Larimer County, but extending across the state, who have been very successful at advocating for clean air. And like I said, the clean air and climate are very connected, right? So, and to help share their stories of how they've been successful in navigating different, either the city level, the county level, or the state level action. And so we're working on that as part of one of my EPA grant on community that's focused on community-oriented air monitoring. And we're aligning it with Air Quality Awareness Week, the first week in May. So we're hoping to hold it at the Discovery Center. And we haven't set the date in stone, the time in stone yet, but we're working to pull that together. And I think that could be a nice, event also.
Keep us informed.
Yeah, and maybe that group could come, because we're hoping it would be like a panel discussion, and then people will share all their experiences, and we're hoping to have some young people there so that they can sort of learn how to get engaged effectively.
So I'm wondering, is it just me, or do very few people living in the Front Range understand that we have an air quality problem?
You are correct. Not everyone understands.
I mean, that just blows my
Yeah.
mind. And how do we deal with that?
I'm not sure, but one idea that I have, so, and I'd love to like get your thoughts on this, or we could do it. I just have to figure out how to do it because it's an idea I think would be really fun, a local idea. CSU has a water literate leaders program. So there's a program that, leaders, it's all types, like private sector, public sector, can get up to speed on water issues in Colorado. And I feel like we should make an air literate leaders program and figure out how to do that. And I'm working on with the Center for EJ, we're working on a little bit of a proposal to try to find some funding to do that. But I think this would be a fun local. I don't think we need that much funding. We just need to bring the right people together to do it. And we could probably leverage all sorts of things. But I think something like that would be neat because I agree our sort of air literacy is relatively weak for how
How's our
bad the
water
Front Range
literacy?
is. Yeah, for how bad the Front Range air quality is. I mean, we're an ozone non-attainment area. We're constantly having wildfire smoke. We have air toxics, right? We have lots of different air pollutants here. But I don't think people realize quite that they're living in an area that is relatively polluted.
Yeah, I was just looking at my background. I realized the background that I have is
It'll give me
actually Cameron
PTSD.
Peak Fire.
Your background gives me PTSD, Kathy.
Some people think, they've told me, what a beautiful cloud. No, that's not a beautiful
No.
cloud. That's a Cameron Peak Fire.
No.
You ought to do something different, Kat.
Is that about time?
Oh, sorry. I noticed
No,
the time. Thank you.
No,
Thank you.
It's been, I am very pleased with the turn that it took to help us to help our kids and ourselves too, I think. I am very intrigued by your suggestion about having kids bring things home. Short of exploiting kids, I think it's amazing what families will do for their kids. And if you can get the kids, they will convince their parents, I think, of the need and what needs to be done. So let's put them in the mix. And on a positive note, first of all, Emily, let me thank you so much for sharing some good ideas and some encouragement, some positivity to this doom and gloom. It's been very helpful. On a positive note, our program for April, which is Earth Month, will be talking about with a completely led high school and college group of kids, the Good Trouble, that has organizations all across Colorado dealing with climate and what they'll be talking about was their petitioning the Colorado State Board of Education and getting the science standards improved and being part of that certificate that you were talking about, Kathy, and getting that clarified and things. So they'll be talking about the power of youth and what they can do. That'll be for April. And for next month, Kate Gilbert, that was asking some of the science fair questions and things, will be talking with us on the topic of today's EPA is prioritizing polluters over the public. So that'll be interesting. She talked with us last month about Forever Chemicals and what they do to the water. But I know you're involved in a couple of things coming up this week that continue your fight. If you could tell us how that's happening.
So I am having a fun week, and actually this is part of what keeps me going actually when right is I'm like, all right, start working with the high schoolers. Here we go.
Yeah.
So on Thursday is the youth leadership, or I'm sorry, I'm saying the wrong word, but I put it in there for you. The Youth Climate Leadership Summit. So, and at CSU, so 400 local high school students are coming to learn about climate change and how to be active in that on that topic. I'm going to do a little thing about wildfires with them. I have, just a few questions about wildfires, and I have this fun game, Spot It game, that teaches about wildfires and, opens the door for talking about it's just something active for high schoolers to play while we talk about it. And then, so that'll be fun. And then later that day, because somehow it all got into the same day, which is not how it's all supposed to go, but both things moved, honestly. Later that evening is a panel at the Lyric with some really wonderful other faculty members. And you should come to that if you want to. It should be kind of nice about how we can engage community, our local community, and environmental public health. So, like I said, I think working right now, like how can we just work at the local level? I'm thinking about it too in my own way. So, and I'd love to, hear more from you about how you think I could be more effective at a local level. I'm happy to hear that. But those are two this week, and I don't know why all three things are happening this week. I have.
Well, thank you for making us
weird.
But
I'm happy, and I'm happy it's all happening. But yeah, it's a week. I don't know why it's all happening this week.
Yeah, you're off to a good start. Thank you.
Thank you. I haven't done anything else public. I haven't done any public stuff for like months. And I was like, oh, this week in February's got a lot of things. So,
Everybody wakes
it's
up
good.
after the holidays.
It's good though. It's good. We got to get back on the horse here
Yeah.
after the last year, I think.
I, along with just other things happening and follow-ups, I had asked Kathy, some good things have happened with the news access and literacy part of us. If she could tell us about some of the legislation that's happening about that.
Well, yeah, so just recently on Friday, we learned that there may be a ballot initiative for us statewide in Colorado, sponsored partly by the League of Women Voters of Colorado. So we have a ballot initiative that was filed by the League of Women Voters of Colorado together with Independence Institute, and it is going to be asking voters if they'd like to enshrine in the Constitution a fundamental right, in the Colorado Constitution, a fundamental right to know what's going on in local and state government. So it's and this is because in the last couple of years there've been a lot of initiatives in the legislature to pare back the Colorado Open Records Act and make it more difficult for the public to get access to records of what's going on in public meetings, in local government meetings. So that's a fun thing that might be on the ballot, and something that the League of Women Voters of Colorado is really proud to be part of. So I'm going to pop a link in the chat for you can read about an article about it. And was there something else, Jane?
Nope, I think
Okay.
lots of stuff going on.
For sure.
But yeah, too big for the chat.
Yeah.
But stay tuned, okay? And thanks again, Emily, and to all of you all who brought your stories and your questions and talking about the climate with kids.
Thank you, Emily.
Worth it.
Thank
you all.
It's
Don't be
wonderful. It's very-
strangers.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.